Good evening and welcome to the fifth round of the F1 1984 Masters with SIMRACERS Revival. I am your host, Neil Wood, and I will be taking you through 38 laps around Hockenheim. So, this is round 5 of the 7-round championship. We are past halfway, and it is a nail-biter, an absolute nail-biter. So, 38 laps around this circuit. We are using the 1986 version, so it's in period with the cars we are using today. So, what are the cars we are using today? So we're using the 1984 Formula 1 cars. So these do have a mixture of naturally aspirated and turbo engines. It does depend on what team drivers have picked. Now, it does have some advantages and disadvantages. Of course, if you run it on full boost, you're going to use up that fuel quick smart, so you can use it for qualifying, but I don't guarantee that it's going to be good in the race. Plus, it may cause some heating problems, and this circuit, the majority of it is flat out, so drivers have got to be very careful tonight. So, the opposite in terms of race mode, if they turn the engine down to race mode, it means that they get a bit more engine mileage. So fuel will possibly be an issue. So drivers will be fiddling with that dial, messing with their engine mode to see if they can make it to the end. We did see a couple of different strategies last time out. So along with that, our drivers do have the opportunity to use different tyres as well. We did see a couple of different strategies last time out at Silverstone. Soft tyres were in use. The majority of our drivers do use medium tyres, but hards are available. And we did see a couple of people that were taking hard tyres, but unfortunately they didn't get to the end to make use of that strategy if it was going to be a viable one. We're not expecting any wet weather today, so no wet tyres in use, but I will keep an eye on the skies. There are stranger things that have happened. But in terms of where we are and where we have been, so our schedule is as follows. So we're currently at Hockenheim. There's only 2 rounds left of this championship. After this, we'll be heading to Monza. And then the last round in Adelaide, kind of a typical circuit that would have been used in Formula 1 in the early 90s. So rounding out the season in Australia, which should be quite fun. But we have been to round 1 in Jarama in Spain. Then we went to Buenos Aires in Argentina. Then we did a very interesting round at Monaco for the 3rd round. And then, as I said, the last round was Silverstone. So where it stands at the moment with just 4 rounds gone, this is the championship as it stands. So Michael Stoy leads the championship in that Brabham BMW. Marco Salvaggio currently in 2nd place, with Becky Ely-Clark not far behind in 3rd. And level on points with Vito Martino as well. Vito Martino had a stunning round at Silverstone, but I will get to that later in the broadcast. And then in 5th we have Gianluca Galetti. Unfortunately, he hasn't scored in the last couple of rounds. No, in fact, he has scored in the last round, not in round 2 and round 3. Then you have Johann Neuenhoff in the Renault, Matthias Berger in the what looks like the JPS Lotus with 25 points. So very tight for at least 5th down to 7th place there. Then you have Josef Miller in the Benetton Alfa Romeo in 8th, and then Ronnie Ruger in 9th in the ATS BMW. And then rounding out the top 10, we have one of our Tyrrells. It's Io Schuerkamp, level on points with Ronnie Ruger. So all to play for in this championship. All to play for indeed. I'm looking forward to our drivers being out on track and seeing what they can do. Also, this track is one of the favourites of mine in its older configuration. And it is flat out most of the way, split up by a few chicanes. So how about we actually head out on track so we can see what our drivers are up to. So just heading around the track is one of our Lotus drivers. get our boxes on so we can see what's going on. So we've got a few people in the server at the moment. There's 7 minutes left of practice. We will be heading for qualifying in about 8 minutes time, and it is a 25-minute qualification session. So plenty of time for our drivers to get a little bit of space on track. And I have heard some chatter in the in Discord about drivers wondering how far they can push the engine mode, if they can go on full chat for the entire Grand Prix. There's been a few chances taken around a couple of these chicanes. So if we look at Galetti, that's the chicane that I think is going to be a bit of a choke point. So it's the Brems curve 2 there, just before the Ost curve. As we see Becky Ely Clark doing the same thing. So you can possibly gain a lot of time going through there as quick as possible, but drivers have got to be very, very careful. So currently topping the times in the practice session is Andy Schremser. That's a 1:40.4. So heading up the back straight into what will be the stadium section. So the wider line you can take here, the better. So you can head into that, what is a drag strip now, I believe. So into the stadium section we come. So around the Sachs curve. And you've got this quick left, right. You've got to avoid the curbs on that inside there, otherwise it puts you off. Through the Opel curve. And then the last turn there, the Suds curve, and then over the line. So just a reminder that I am using automatic cameras. I can switch around cameras if I see something particularly problematic, but the game is taking care of who is being in focus, so it lets me focus on other stuff rather than worrying about who is where. So, I'm looking forward to this round. I have been for quite some time. Looking at Galetti at the moment in the ATS BMW. I did say he was, I think he put in his first points finish last time out at Silverstone. So Silverstone, what happened at Silverstone? So looking down my cheat sheet I've got in front of me. So round 4, Vito Martino came away with the win in Silverstone. He went for a one-stop strategy. There was other cars on the grid, like Becky Ely Clark that we're looking at, did go for an ambitious strategy where she was on soft tyres, and I believe it was a two-stopper that she tried, but unfortunately a spin in that very I would say very tail-happy Lotus. She's been having a few problems with it breaking away, and she did have a couple of spins at Silverstone, and she was nearly in the top positions, but only came away with I believe it's 5th. So looking at her teammate on track, Matthias Berger, and our winner from last time out, Vito Martino in the Arrows BMW. So, stunning round from Martino. It wasn't all plain sailing, because he did have someone in front of him called Marco Salvaggio in the Renault, who's tried a very ambitious strategy of a no-stopper, and it was very close towards the end. I think it was in the last 15 minutes the top positions weren't decided, so it may come down to that today as well. I expect lots of slipstreaming. It's possibly going to be who you're behind in qualifying. Maybe you can get a cheeky toe behind somebody. So last just over 2 minutes of practice left. As we see it, Benson unfortunately spinning to the inside there. I believe that's Joseph. That's Joseph Muller. Gets it around the right way. So Andy Schremser, not far off from practice pole. in Nicky Lauder's McLaren. So Schremser looking down at his points. He's only been able to put a point score in the last round. He got eighth place at Silverstone. Vito Martino, it was his only win of the season. He's been very close in previous rounds, but this was his first win of the season. It had been kind of imminent. Kind of thought that he'd possibly be knocking on the door of it for quite some time. But a podium in round 2, when we started our broadcasts in Buenos Aires, it was very, very close between the top 3 at that point, and a late accident actually probably put pay to that, and he ended up 3rd. But 7th place in round 1 and round 3, so a little up and down, but currently in good form. But still a ways to catch our championship leader. I think our championship leader normally leaves it very late to come onto the server. It was very late last time, and I was wondering whether he was actually going to appear. So, championship leader Michael Stoy, 2 wins this season and a 3rd place, so he's never been off the podium. So, good consistency. He wasn't around in round 3, or didn't score any points in round 3. But can he be caught? So, it's 54 points to 48. Marco Salavaggio, who's also not here at the moment, so I'm wondering if he's going to come in a bit later. It would be a shame if, after that stunning no-stopper last time out, that Salvaggio is possibly not going to be turning up today. But Schuerkamp in one of the Tyrrells, getting his braking all wrong, coming down to what I believe is the Bremskurve 3. It's the faster of the 3 Bremskurves. And then we have Joe Reebok in the Ligier Renault. Sounded like he's banging off the limiter there. I think drivers are going to have to be very, very careful how much they stress these engines. Right, so switching over to qualification. So 25 minutes qualification session we have in front of us. Who's going to be the first out of the pits? We will have to see. But we have a track temperature of about 39.8 degrees with an air temperature of about 22. So the track is nice and hot. So that should work in favour. Getting tyres up to temperature, but I guess drivers are going to have to be very careful about overheating their tyres. So who is going to be the first out the pits? It looks like it's a JPS Lotus who's the first out. It's Ely Clark. Ely Clark wants a clean road in front. Doesn't want any particular distractions. But as I say, slipstream could be an issue here. Vito Martino about 3rd or 4th on the road there. So the Ares BMW has proved to be quite a strong car for Martino this season. As I say that, it has a little bit of a problem. Not caught by our cameraman, he's underneath us. There he is, and I think the drivers did the exact same thing. So stepping on the loud pedal a bit too early. Well, let's have a look at the 3 cars closer together. So, Ely Clark. I believe that's possibly who am I looking for? That's not Andy D. Getting confused with the logos here. So it's Neuenhof that is close behind Ely Clark. So Ely Clark, Neuenhof, and I believe that's Schremser in the back there in the McLaren. So the three of them hoping for a bit of a cheeky tow. So championship leader enters the server. Michael Stoy is here, along with Salavaggio, which is good to see. It's a little bit disappointing if people can't make it and drop some championship points, but real life does get in the way. Sim racing always has to come second best. So Neuenhof heading down the front straight for the first time. It's quite a hard braking zone into this first Brems curve. It's slightly tighter nowadays, that Brems curve, but you've got to stay away from the curbs. You'll see that they won't be hopping over these curbs. They are slightly higher. Now this is the chicane that you're going to have to maybe take a little bit of a chance in qualifying going through it, and you can gain a lot of speed, but you do take a little bit of a chance of kind of shooting for the gap, hoping that you don't hit too much of that curb on the left hand side. So Schremser is heading down the straight there. Martino also now on his quicker lap. Let's switch to our qualifying mode. So Ely Clark is going to be the first to set a time. Fastest of all in the first sector, because he is the first one to go through that sector. So 40.0 is the split time for Martino. Ely Clark has done a 40.1 in the first sector. Martino is a little bit down in the second sector, so first lap time on the board 139.4. Neuenhof dropping back a little. So no cheeky toe. And Schremser, one of those top three cars, comes across the line 1.1 adrift. So Martino pops up to third, 1.3 adrift of provisional pole. Rosa in the Tyrrell, 1.4 away from provisional pole, 20 minutes to go. Matthias Bogle across the line, 1.5 away, so tight from second down to fifth. 6 drivers have made their qualifying laps, so see how much of a chunk of that curb Becky Ely Clark is taking. That's possibly earning her about half a second, I would say. I noted it at Silverstone. Her car never really looked comfortable to drive. I mean, these cars are very brutal. You need to give them a bit of I was going to say TLC, but you've really got to drive within their limits. Not push them too hard, not step on that throttle too hard, because there's a lot of power behind your right foot. So there's a few drivers that have not put in representative times as of yet. So I would say 8th down to the end of the field, possibly still need to put a representative time in. So across the line for the second time, Ely Clark now down to a 38.2, so the gap for provisional pole has changed. Neuenhof now 1.7 away, so I wonder whether the strategy of cutting through that chicane for Ely Clark is proving to be a fruitful one. But whether or not she will do that in the race, we'll have to see. Martino comes into the pits. So we do have the rule of this series that drivers need to do their out lap, their fastest lap, and then the in lap. No stopping out on the circuit. There was a few people that fell foul of that rule a couple of rounds ago. The stewards didn't take kindly to that and gave them a little bit of a slap on the wrist. But everyone should be up to speed now. So 14 drivers out on track at the moment. Well, in fact, 14 drivers in all entered today, but about 13 out on track. So Ely Clark pushing on So that's a 31.2, possibly a purple sector. So fastest of all in the second. That's a Tyrrell ahead that's gone off. Maybe might have put off Ely Clark coming through there. There's another car off to the left there. That looks like a Ligier. So possibly Joe Reebok. So maybe it did put off Ely Clark coming into that final sector. So decided to abandon that lap. She does have a margin of 1.7. So plenty of time for other people to find. So Neuenhoff currently second place. There is a little bit of runoff in that first corner. 4 drivers to run a little bit wide, but that curb comes to a stop very, very quickly. So you don't really want to drop it onto the grass because your car will be heading to the scene of the accident very quickly. As we have Thomas Rosa in the other Tyrrell coming into the pits. So Hockenheim in this configuration. Just looking down at my cheat sheet. It was, I believe, 1982, I believe, until 1991. This layout. So 6.8 kilometers rather, 4.22 miles, 16 turns. But obviously this version of Hockenheim was pretty much abandoned because of I would say crowd numbers, because you can see that as they go into the forest section of this track, spectators possibly didn't see the cars until they come back to the stadium. So cars leave the stadium section and then they go around the majority of the lap. Spectators are sitting there twiddling their thumbs thinking of what's happening to the cars. I paid to see a motor race. So the shorter version of this circuit does encompass the stadium section kind of as it is now. It has a drag strip just where Neuenhoff is coming to, so you see that strip of tarmac. So that's now a drag strip. So across the line, Neuenhoff, that is Matthias Bogle getting it all wrong. I think that's down at the Ost curve there. No, and in fact I think that's coming out of the final, the first chicane perhaps. I'm seeing a yellow flag. No, that was another driver. So Martino coming out of, I think, is the Ost curve. So the Ost curve has proved, unfortunately, a bit in real life. It proved very difficult and very quick. They had to slow it down with that chicane just before it. Didier Pironi came to grief, which pretty much ended his Formula 1 career. Hopefully Neuenhoff has not beached his car. No, he hasn't. So you see how much of a knife edge it is coming through that chicane. You win it or bin it. So speaking of the Ost curve, before they had that chicane in there, unfortunately the Alfa Romeo driver of Topaye unfortunately lost his life. So changes were made to the circuit. But this circuit should be a bit of a car breaker, because the majority of it is pretty much flat out. So I'm interested to see what groups we're going to find on track, and whether we're going to have some slower drivers that remain in the draft of others. So someone trying to get a cheeky toe off of Ely Clark, even though Ely Clark has just come out of the pits. So just over 14 minutes to go. Ely Clark still top of provisional pole. And that looks like a spinner, unfortunately. Trying to get going again and gets into the rear of Ely Clark. So that looked like possibly Rosa in the Tyrrell. So a bit unsighted when he was trying to do his spin turn. So cars are in a bit of a line here. So in front of Ely Clark, trying to get a little bit of space, and Thomas Rosa trying to do the same. Or maybe Thomas Rosa is trying to say stay on the back of Ely Clark as much as he can. That cheeky toe could be very, very useful. There are, I would say, about 4 straights that could make drafting very advantageous. And Thomas Rosa It's 1.8 seconds off provisional pole at the moment in 4th place. So a bit of time to find. So staying absolutely glued to the gearbox of Edie Clark. Can he stay with her? That's the thing. Martino has popped up to 2nd place, only a second away from provisional pole. So the gap is closing down. It looks like possibly I think that's the ATS of Galetti that's come to grief in the Ost curve. So another driver that perhaps is trying to push the limits of going through that chicane. Stoy now up to 4th place. So normally enters a little bit late. It takes a little while to get up to speed. But consistent runner and championship leader. So we're going to have to see what he can do from where he is at the moment. So as I say, this layout 1982 until 1991. Race lap record in real life was by Riccardo Patrese in the Williams FW14 in 1991. 143.56. So we're beating that today with a 138.2. So that looks like Edie Clark's race lap or qualifying lap is ruined for the time being. So coming to a complete stop is now after you and after you. So it looks like possibly, I believe that may have been on my cheat sheet. That was Neuenhoff in the Renault. It's always a little bit awkward when you're saddled. I was going to say saddled, not saddled. I mean stricken across the track. I did see Rosa collided with that Renault, or recovering Renault. I'm wondering why Neuenhoff didn't possibly pull to the left, because he was not on a quick lap and Rosa was possibly on one. So Salvaggio, the star from Silverstone, putting in that no-stop strategy to nearly come away with the win. I thought he was going to do it, but it was an ambitious one. But coming away from with 2nd place from that, it was very impressive. So currently 9th place on the road with a little bit of work to do. So Bogle now up to 4th place, 1.2 away from provisional pole. So that gap is closing down slowly but surely with just over 10 minutes to go. Can anyone get any closer to Edie Clark? Now we did see a couple of engines go pop last time out at Silverstone. So unfortunately Edie Clark is going to come across a slower car coming out of Ost curve. That was kind of unfortunate. I think this lap was ruined anyway. So she has been mentioning, I'm trying to keep the rear end of this car under control. It's either rear grip or losing it on acceleration. So a big wide line coming into the stadium section. You can see a lot of rubber down on the track as well. That should help our drivers. So it carries over from practice. Practice is open for a couple of hours for these drivers, so they can put plenty of rubber down on the track. And there's a track temperature now up to about 42.8, so it's getting a bit warmer as well. I wonder if that's playing a part with no one really kind of putting the moves in, improving their times. But 38.2 is very, very quick. So 9 minutes to go. Edie Clark, provisional pole. Martino in 2nd. Tremser possibly going to be his best qualifying of the season so far, if he stays in 3rd. As losing it on the brakes is Edie Clark. So unfortunately that possibly would have got in the way of her teammate on the road. currently in 4th. So it's always a little bit of a pain when you come down to the first chicane on the track and your car swaps ends, and that is that lap done. So Ely Clark, Martino, Schremser, Bogle, Salvaggio, that is your top 5. Championship leader now has dropped down to 6th place, so Michael Stoy in the Brabham BMW, 1.6 seconds away. Maybe not the best qualifier, but he makes up for it in the race. And it is a long old race. It's going to be 38 laps around this place. So back into the stadium section. Ely Clark hoping to put in a cleaner lap this time. There is a yellow flag in the last turn of the track. Hopefully they do get going just before Ely Clark comes around, but Ely Clark has decided to abandon that lap, so I'm wondering whether she's trying the strategy of just doing one quick lap and then coming back into the pits. So a quick pit stop and out she comes again. So this circuit currently doesn't hold any Formula 1 in its current form. The circuit is now home to DTM from the year 2000 up to the present day. Also the International GT Open. And also, as I said, in the modern configuration, it does have a drag strip. So it holds the European Drag Racing Championship. Now, it formerly did have the Formula 1 Grand Prix, the German Grand Prix, intermittently between 1970 and 2019. So I would be bad if I didn't mention that also Hockenheim was the place that we unfortunately lost Jim Clark. This was when the Hockenheim circuit was pretty much without chicanes, so it would have been even faster than it is now. So the 1960s version of the circuit, no one-car barriers, so and not so many chicanes, but we got a few chicanes slowing our cars down today. So, as I say, Formula 1 was here intermittently between 1970 and 2019. Also, it's held the Motorcycle Grand Prix, along with the FIA World Rallycross Championships, TCR Europe, GT World Challenge Europe, World Superbikes, FIA GT World Sports Car Championship. So, a very popular circuit. Still runs today on the 2002 shortened circuit, which is only 4.5 kilometers long, so slightly different to what we're running now. So Ely Clark coming down to the first chicane. She got it all wrong there last time, but clean through there, possibly taking a bit too much curb, lifting the car off the ground. Doesn't look comfortable over the curbs now. Well, looking at the top provisional pole, maybe Ely Clark is maybe feeling like her pole is slipping away, because the gap is now down to 0.2 of a second. Martino has closed the gap somewhat. So the front row could change hands in these last 4 minutes of qualifying. So first sector 39.66. So slight wiggle coming out of the Brims curve 3. Heading down to the stadium section into the Ajip curve. Again, staying away from that curb on the inside. Curbs are not to be ridden in these days. They lift the car up off the ground. In modern day, of course, they take any advantage they can with the flatter curves, but curbs from this day and age are a bit higher. They do mark the edge of the track along with the white line. Nowadays it's somewhat different. So, Edie Clark puts in a faster lap, has moved the benchmark away. Now Vito Martino has to find 0.9 of a second. See if he can possibly get into the lead or provisional pole. But I'm wondering whether track position is going to be vital. With all these long straights, you could see someone coming from the third row drafting past, but it looks like it's possibly going to be a very busy lap 1 until the field spreads out a little. So taking a lot of chance. The car becomes nearly airborne, I think, bouncing over those curbs. But Ely Clark does have to wait until the wheels are back on the ground before she can accelerate again. So that's a cleaner chicane for her this time, so possibly moving the benchmark even further away. So 39.64 was the first sector, 31.0 the next sector. Again, missing those curbs on the inside, which is very, very clean. So it looks like it's putting together maybe a tidier lap than last time. I'm not seeing any curb riding, so it didn't look like there was any setup change she had to make. It was a quickly in and out, slight oversteer on the last corner. And indeed, she does improve. That's 1.4 seconds ahead of the field. Vito Martino looks like he's possibly building up to another go. That is, I think, Borveg behind. No, that is not Borveg behind. That is a Renault. And Vito Martino unfortunately gets it all wrong. Spins into pit lane. I suppose it's the perfect place to spin to, because it means he doesn't have far to go to restart his lap. Just needs to get that car turned around and into the pit garage. Slight 3-point turn. So he was possibly on for a personal best there, and he just went a little bit wide, lifted the car off the ground. Car being a little bit unsettled, and it does look like our third place driver, Salvaccio, possibly span out of the first corner and has returned to the pits, so he will take no further part in qualifying. So is that third place under threat? Possibly by our championship leader, Michael Stoy. I'm seeing another yellow flag up at the first chicane. That's 11th place of Andy D. Looks like he's able to get it going again. So with 34 seconds to go, is provisional pole currently safe? It looks like Becky has decided, no, I don't want to do another lap. I want to come back into the pits. So she believes she's safe enough for provisional pole. So Stoy getting a little bit of a cheeky toe off this Benetton Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, looks like a little bit of a slower car, so wasn't able to pass into the chicane, or didn't feel comfortable enough passing so late into the chicane. So that's possibly ruined his chance of improving his lap time. So you see his second sector is not a personal best at all. He's currently in 5th place, so that's not a bad place to start. I can't think that the top 6, I mean, we may have surprises lower down than that, but the draft playing is such a big part at this circuit. It could prove to be vital for some of these drivers, as Bogle puts in his final lap time of the session. Stays in 4th place. I'm not sure that anyone in front is going to improve. The rest of the cars just behind are in the pits. We've only got Josef Miller and, well, in fact, we've got Josef Miller out on track. And I'm hearing Neuenhoff going around the circuit. That should be our last driver to put in a lap time. So not setting the timesheets at a light in the first sector. So, yeah, it looks like the first sector is well down. So this is just a drive back to the pits, and we are going off to warm up. So our drivers now completed their qualifying. That was a very interesting session. So we'll see what our starting order officially is. So looking at our starting order, we have Ely Clark on the top of the timesheets, with Martino second, Nieuwenhof third, Bogle in fourth. Salvaggio in fifth place, with championship leader now knocked down to sixth, Andy Schremser seventh, Giletti in eighth. Then we have Thomas Rosa in ninth, Josef Müller in 10th, Andy D in 11th, Bulweg in 12th. Then we have our back row of the grid, Schuerkamp in the Tyrrell in 13th, and then Reebok in 14th in the Ligier Renault. So, a good lineup of 14 drivers we have today. I'm looking forward to this one. Looking forward to it indeed. So just a reminder, so our schedule is as follows. We've had 4 rounds so far. We broadcasted the from round 2 onwards from Buenos Aires. And then we went to Monaco for the 3rd round, Silverstone for the 4th round, but we are here at Hockenheim today. So a little short break before we would head to Monza. It's about 2 weeks' time. And then a bigger break between the penultimate round and our last round at Adelaide. So 11th of May for Monza, and then 8th of June for Adelaide. So plenty of time for our drivers to have a little bit of practice. So going from the straights of Monza, probably one of the fastest circuits that we're going to race on in the series, then heading to Adelaide, a very tight street circuit in Australia. So that should be a very interesting round. Very interesting round indeed. So, what can we expect from this race? Will the draft prove to be the deciding factor? So, drivers just getting in their last warm-ups of the session. Just getting their eye in, really. It's going to be a standing start, but they're going to form up on the grid. So looks like one of our Renault drivers, possibly Nieuwenhof. You can never really tell which one's which. We've got 2 Renault drivers in the field, so Nieuwenhof and Salvaggio. So getting the clutch bite point correct is going to be vital. Because the last thing you want to do is, we've had a few people dumping the clutch and not getting away, pretty much nearly stalling it, and it's caused a lot of problems with cars behind. We did see those kind of problems at Buenos Aires. We had a few people getting speared off into the Armco. So it'd be good to see everyone getting away cleanly. And I believe a lot of patience is going to be needed on the first lap, where all the drivers are going to be as close as possible. Or they're going to be as close as they will be for the entirety of the upcoming race. So cars back in the 1980s were absolute monsters. It's an era which I particularly enjoy because there was a lot of experimentation going on. All the cars look a little bit different. It was kind of before the early 90s where they all kind of looked very standardized and kind of maybe a less experimentation to the 70s. But I think the 70s was more a little bit of guesswork for aerodynamics, but this is when they were really pushing the boundaries of what was possible. You had turbo engines that were started with Renault I believe back in, it was either 1981 or 1982. So it proved to be a very fast way to drive a Formula 1 car. It was eventually banned, I think for safety reasons, as most things sometimes are. But it took a while for a lot of the teams to be able to develop a turbo, and a reliable turbo. Back in the early 1980s, when Renault were developing the turbo, it was kind of like an unproven technology, and it proved to be very unreliable. Lots of engines lots of turbos getting blown apart, I would imagine. But you had car shapes are a lot smoother than they are now. No kind of incidental winglets. But they were trying a few things back in the early 1980s, up until the late 1980s. And you got teams in this championship that are still around today, as we are moving off to the grid. So as I say, it is a standing start, but drivers will be doing a formation lap to start off with, to go away from the grid. So I give them an opportunity to warm their brakes a little, warm their tyres a little. So one last check of the regulations to make sure that I am reading from the same hymn sheet as the drivers. So 38 laps around Hockenheim. That is correct. It is a formation lap to a standing start, so we're just waiting for, I believe, the last checks for admin to go through, and we are forming up on the grid. So Ely Clark will lead us away from the grid for our warm-up lap. We can go through the grid once again. So our starting order is already set. Is Ely Clark on pole with Martino in second, Neuenhoff in the Renault in third, Matthias Bogle in fourth in the Lotus Renault. Then we have fifth place Marco Salvaggio in the Renault. Slight problem at on the main straight. Michael Stoy, championship leader in sixth, Schremser seventh, and Giletti in eighth. Rosa in ninth, Muller in 10th, Andy D in 11th, Borveg in 12th, Schuerkamp in 13th, and Reebok in 14th. So it looked like maybe a couple of people getting a little bit caught out with perhaps some warming of brakes. So a very slow outlap, so I'm wondering whether Ely Clark is particularly worried about tyre overheating. I'm looking at the temperatures. We still are at 42 degrees Celsius. Also possibly I want to look at tyre choice as well. We have time before they get to the grid. So what kind of tyre choice, what kind of strategy are these drivers thinking? Top. It's only the fourth place of Bogle that's trying a soft tyre strategy, so we may see him coming into the pits more than the other drivers. Also Andy D, we didn't see Andy D's strategy in the Ferrari working out, because unfortunately he was one of our drivers that came to grief at Silverstone. He is on the hard tyre, so we'll have to see whether that is a good option. So I'm going to keep an eye on Andy D, starting in 11th place. Might be good to see. But say, these drivers are going to be as close together as they will ever be in this race. So no sudden moves going down the main straight for the first time. So the last thing we want is a crash that wipes out a lot of our drivers. I mean, we've not seen many times when a spin has caused a retirement. Sometimes it has been engine failures. We have seen like a couple of drivers with their engines gone up in flames, but I think we've also seen sometimes drivers spinning and beaching their car and they can't move it. But plenty of straights on this circuit. This is a deceptively 16 turns that it tells me. 2 chicanes, so we've got the Nord curve, the Brems curve 1 and 2, then through the Ost curve, and heading through the fast right-hander of the Ost curve up to Brems curve 3, then into the stadium section, the Ajip curve, then the Sachs curve, Opel curve, and Sud curve, or Sud curve, for our final corner. So keys in this race will be keeping that engine temperature under control, not hitting that rev limiter too much, which may happen in the draft, but we are formed up on the grid, ready to go for 38 laps around Hockenheim. What is going to happen? So Ely Clark's going to lead them away. Will she be in the lead in turn 1? Right, away goes Ely Clark. It's a really good start. Looks like Stoy did not get a good start, which meant drivers had to check up behind. It doesn't look like a smoking car in the background. Was that the Ferrari of Andy D? A couple of smoking cars. I'm wondering whether maybe drivers have not loaded their race settings. So Ely Clark gets away. Bogle makes an absolute blinder from the second row. That is an absolute carnage in the first chicane there. I'm not sure who got rear-ended, but someone went flying in the first chicane. So I'm seeing on my sheets it was maybe Galetti. I'm not sure whether Galetti got collected or perhaps collected someone else, but I saw a car up in the air. So 2 Lotuses out in front. Bogle came from the second row up to second place. Maybe a little bit of a slower start from Martino, who's now dropped down the order to 5th place. So drivers are going to have to be very careful banging off that limiter now that you're in the draft. You need to make sure that you're not topping out the revs. So Reebok in the Ligier Renault, seeing that Tyrrell just ahead. So it looks like the smoking of those engines has come down a little. I was a little worried we were going to have some early retirements, but that Ferrari and that Benton have now calmed down their engine temps. So into lap 2, Ely Clark and Bogle out front, but Ely Clark has opened the gap up to 2.4 seconds, so trying to make the gap while she can, staying out of draft range. So a couple of drivers are running wide at turn 1, so side by side between Neuenhoff and Rosa. Martino, after that shocking start, is making a few mistakes into the first chicane. So the driver that did not get away was Stoy, which is the driver that is directly behind Martino. Is there room on the outside coming up to that chicane? That's possibly the worst place to try and pass, the tightest place to pass. So Ely Clark is away in the lead. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th are in a group together. Vito Martino is the last of that group, and you see a big gap behind, so that's where the accident happened. So the next group is led by Schuerkamp in the 7th with Schremser, Reebok and Müller. So look at how much we gain in the draft. So how much do you want to gain? Do you want to sacrifice engine temps? Possibly engine life? Lifting off a little bit early into braking zones. Perhaps Martino feels that he's following someone that is Camp, unfortunately going a bit wide into the stadium section as Ely Clark puts in the fastest lap of the race so far, 41.9. So Nieuwenhof is now up to the back of Bogle. Broken a little bit of weight from Rosa in the Tyrrell. Possibly pulled out draft range from that Tyrrell as well, so that could work in his favour. The second and third could end up getting away, but a massive gap out front now, 4.6 seconds. So that gap is going to be over 10 seconds in not a short time. So through that chicane, Stoy gets it a little bit wrong. That means Vito Martino is going to have the run coming down the straight out of the Ost curve. But you can see the cars ahead getting away. So Salvaggio was possibly one of those drivers that did come to grief because he's back in 10th place at the moment. He thought about having a look down into that Brems curve too, but it is very, very risky. Extremely risky indeed. That's Andy D in the Ferrari just behind this group. So that's a car spun around. That is currently 11th place of Josef Müller, has gone around in Brems curve 3. That will put him to the back of the field. That's unfortunate. I don't know whether that was dust or whether that was engine trouble. No, it looks like he's got going again, so that's good to see. He's got some catching up to do at the back of the field. So, no such problems with Stoy again this lap. So, getting a clean exit to turn 1. But Martino is still able to draft up to the back. So, looking at lap times, the leader is in the 42.4s. The rest of the field in the 43s. So Ely Clark is making hay while the sun shines, as they say, pulling out a bit of the gap. So first is away, second and third have broken away a little, and this gaggle of drivers, third and fourth. So Rosa right on the back of this Renault. So Nieuwenhof thought was possibly going to go defensive there, but it's a battle of give and take really. Till Rosa is able to make the move, but can he pull away? That's the thing. You can see second place of Bogle taking a very wide line into the stadium section. So Müller pits from 14th place. Possibly damage for that car. So Rosa would love to draft up on the back of Bogle in the second, but that gap is getting slightly larger. Martino has now passed Stoy. I think Stoy has had an accident somewhere out the circuit because he's now dropped down from Martino by 6 seconds. So that's the championship leader. Seeing a yellow flag on track. That's Andy D that's gone around in the stadium section. That's dropped him down to 13th place. So a mistake from the Ferrari driver. He is on hard tyres, so possibly having trouble getting those tyres all warmed up. So from what I remember, Bogle is on the softer tyres. Maybe that's how he made an absolute stormer from the second row of the grid. So we'll have to keep an eye on what his strategy is. Galetti coming up the inside of Schuerkamp into the first chicane. Schuerkamp gives him the room. Right, so in the first 5 laps of this race, who was our biggest winners and losers? So it looks like Rosa gained 6 positions in the first 5 laps. So an absolute stormer of a start. And the biggest loser, unfortunately, is Josef Müller, back down in 14th place, losing 4 places from where he started. He's currently still in the pits, so possibly damage, possibly other technical issues. So Martino is now drafting up back onto the back of Nieuwenhof in the Renault. So top 5, so 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, all within not much, a couple of seconds of each other. Looks like Martino's aimed to draft past, so I wonder whether there is the thought of maybe working together, because you can slow each other down by being defensive. There's plenty of places to draft on this track, so you're quicker with a draft partner. So the lead now up to 7.2 seconds. A big bite of that curb on the inside. So drivers are perhaps wanting to try and get away from a driver behind. But that's Bogle and then Rosa, and we have Nieuwenhof with Martino just behind. But championship leader down in 6th place, 8 seconds adrift of 5th place. So coming into the stadium section for the 6th time, Martino is stuck to the back of this Renault. So we are officially past half distance in this championship as Nieuwenhof runs a little bit wide. You can see that the Tyrrell of Rosa has indeed been able to break the draft from the Renault behind and is driving up to the back of Bogle. But how long are Bogle's tyres going to last? Maybe this circuit might be a bit easier on the softer tyres because of the lack of fast corners. So Reebok has Andy D, in fact, drafting up onto the back of Reebok in the Ligier. So Ferrari nearly loses it on the brakes there. So working out well for Andy D. I wonder if Andy D is maybe deciding to do a no-stop strategy. So Martino is now past Nieuwenhof for 4th place. Nieuwenhof possibly wants that back. So looks like he was coming out of the draft there to maybe put off Martino. Martino did go slightly wide on entry there, touching the grass, kept it under control. So Josef Müller in 14th is back out on track from his pit stop, so he's got going again. That's good to see. So we're back to this battle between 2nd and 3rd. So Rosa can put in lap times of a 42.5, which is quicker than the leader at the moment. But that gap is jumping around a little. Gets it slightly squirrely in turn 1. And then we have that battle between Martino and Nieuwenhof. Doesn't look like Nieuwenhof has dropped away. Still within 0.6 of a second. But that slight mistake in turn 1, Rosa got it a little bit wrong. And is now making more mistakes into the first chicane. Doesn't want to drop into draft range of Martino behind, because I think Martino can possibly gain on these drivers. So bouncing away slightly wide for Martino ahead, kicking up some of the dust. But he's able to get away. So Half distance should be around 17 laps, and this has gone quicker than I thought. Yellow flag in sector 1. That's 11th place of Bolveg that's gone around. As we see, Neuenhoff making a slight mistake, so pushing too hard into the braking zone. And has now dropped out of draft range of Martino. So Martino, 2.2 seconds to racer. So Andy D now ahead of Joe Reebok. So 11th place for Andy D on the harder tyres. Remember, 30 laps remaining. I think draft range is about 0.6 of a second. That is Joe Reebok slowing. Is that a problem for Reebok? Is this engine trouble? He's pulling off the track. I'm not seeing any engine smoke. So is this terminal for Reebok? I think it might be. It's either that or a technical problem. So for those mistakes, Martino has now closed up the gap. It is in fact terminal. Joe Reebok is our first retirement of the race. Didn't see that. Didn't see any engine smoke, so it wasn't an engine overheating problem. So possibly a technical problem. We don't like to see technical problems, but it does happen. Sometimes be things maybe to do with hardware, computer related perhaps, but so Racer is now dropped back into the clutches of Martino. Martino has been putting in those lap times down in the 42s. And Rosa 144.8 last time out, so dropped into his clutches. Bogle is now away. So Lotus Renault leads, Lotus Renault second. Tyrrell in third. Tyrrell Cosworth. And then Arrows BMW in fourth place. So Martino, after that win last time out at Silverstone, he wants more points for this championship. And we may see a difference in championship lead today, as Martino gets it all wrong coming out of turn 1. Knocks off the front of the car. Don't reverse into traffic. That's not the way to do it. So luckily he stopped himself from reversing onto the racing line there. So, commentator's curse once again. I was saying that Martino was making some headway, possibly. So, an early pit stop from Martino. He's got to do the entire lap of this circuit from turn 1 onwards with a broken car. So, that is complete. Nose cone was ripped off. So that's going to be very uncomfortable for Martino. So Schremser getting the braking all wrong for the first chicane and having to go through the slip road. I'll be intrigued to know what happened at the first chicane on the first lap. I think someone got their braking all wrong. And it was a yellow car that I saw. It was perhaps up in the air, so I don't know if that means that they got rear-ended, or they perhaps rear-ended another car. I'll have to find out afterwards. But Ely Clark putting in the laps. 141.7 is the lap time now, with 11.4 second lead. Now I did note that in practice, I was listening in on some of the conversations. Ely Clark was talking about setup issues, wanting to calm the car down a bit. Being out front means you can kind of practice on your own pace, or concentrate on your own pace, and not worry about what's happening with cars behind. That is a Renault of Salvaggio that's unfortunately around on the pit straight, so it looks like possibly gone wide out of the final corner. And I don't think he made contact. It looked like he was just away from the pit wall there. Hopefully no damage, but he's dropping down the order. Martino has been able to get back to the pits in one piece. Minus a front wing. So he's been already serviced and he is out again in 9th place. So let's see if there's been any change in tyre strategy. There has not. It is still Bogle on soft tyres and Andy D on the hard tyres. The rest of our drivers are on the mediums. So good battle between Galetti and Schremser. So Schremser ahead of us in the McLaren and Galetti in 7th in the ATS. Now looking on my cheat sheet, Galetti last time out got a 4th place at Silverstone. The first round, unfortunately we weren't here for that broadcast, he was on the podium in a 3rd. So slightly down in the order, it would maybe prefer to be a few more points up the road. But our point system does run from 1st down to 12th. So 1st place gets 20 points, 2nd gets 16, 3rd gets 14, and then it's 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So plenty of... That looks like 5th place. Rosa has retired, so it looks like an accident around about the Bremskurve 1. And unfortunately, Rosa has what looked like a promising first stint of this race. Maybe a terminal accident. That is a shame because he was about in 4th or 5th place. So that moves Neuenhoff up to 3rd. Stoy, got to be thanking his lucky stars after that really slow start. He's now up to 4th place, so this is going to do his championship lead. But back to the battle between 5th and 6th. So Schremser and Galetti. Schremser going to the middle of the road, trying to get through that chicane. Galetti's probably got to watch out for that and know that he's got to get his braking absolutely spot on with the car in front. Now I have broadcasted a race with these cars in a different league, and that corner or that chicane was a little bit of a flashpoint. We did see a couple of drivers not judging the speed to the other driver in front and coming a bit adrift. So that slight mistake or misjudgment from Galetti has dropped him further back from Schremser. So 2 retirements so far. And as I say that, Schremser goes around. So getting braking slightly wrong into what I think is the Sachs curve. So another commentator's curse. I really should stop doing that. So Galetti now up to 5th place. Schremser down to 6th. So 6th place. I saw Salvaggio and Martino not far behind now from that pit stop. Brand new tyres for Martino. Fastest lap of the race, 141.6. So fastest car on the circuit at the moment. As we're having a side-by-side battle between the Renault of Salvaggio and Martino. So Martino making it through. It's going to make up for lost time after that front wing change. It was a very quick front wing change. I didn't see what kind of lap time he did when he did. He didn't have a front wing. I missed that, but I can't imagine it was a fast one. That is a... Is that a Benetton that's missing a front corner there? No, possibly not. I thought he was on 3 wheels there, but so that's Joseph Muller. He is on 3 wheels. I did think I didn't spot a tyre on that front quarter of the car. Can't get the thing slowed down, so I wonder whether this is our first victim of that tight chicane, because it looks like it's possibly the wrong corner of the car to have come to grief in the Ost curve. That possibly would be the left-hand side. So going down the grass and getting out of the way from everybody. So Schremser has now been passed by Martino. Martino working his way back up the field. So fresh tyres for Martino. I wonder whether fuel would be an issue. I'm also wondering which of our drivers are going to go to the end. We are 2 laps away from half distance, which is when we normally see people coming into the pits. Bogle has gone around in the stadium section, but he has got going again. I'm seeing yellow flags in the stadium section, but that is for Muller, who's trying to make his way back to the pits. I'm sure that it's possibly going to be a little bit disappointed. I'm not sure that the pit crew are going to fix that car. So it's going to get to the pit stop, and the pit crew are going to shake their heads and say, "I'm not fixing that, mate." So after being passed, Schremser is dropping behind Martino. Neuenhoff 1.4 seconds away from Bogle. You can see Bogle ahead, but the lead is up to 19.5 seconds. Now, I'm tempted to say this is a dominant showing. Well, I've said it now. There's no going back. It's a dominant showing from Ely Clark. I hope that doesn't mean the commentator's curse. So, Martino, another fastest lap of the race, 141.5. Fuel load has come down by half. So, possibly this is why the fast laps are coming in. Don't know whether he changed tyres at the same time, but Muller is now in the pits. He did make it into the pits. I believe that is his second pit stop, but this one is for slightly wrong. That Schremser gone around. Director picked that up straight away. Don't get beached on the curb, Andy. So, managed to get away with that. He managed to stop it before the Armco barrier, which was always the good thing. But I can't imagine that those tyres are going to feel very good. Possibly some flat spots. But he was trying to chase on to the back of Martino, but that means he drops down another place to 8th. Salvaggio getting around. So, going through lapped cars. Bogle coming up behind a lapped car in 10th place. That is Andy D on the harder tyres. Now, possibly going to catch him coming up to Brems Curve 2, which would be ideal, and indeed he does. Around he goes. Will the Renault be able to get past before the chicane? I don't think they will. I just noticed that Andy D does not have a front wing. Andy D is not running a front wing. So Andy D, what kind of lap times is Andy D doing? 157.2, so he's had a little bit of a crash out on circuit, which has knocked the front wing off. Side by side, Galetti and Martino. Martino makes his way round. He's now back up to 5th place, so making up for lost time. But Martino is about nearly a minute behind the leader. So 1 lap from half distance. Who's coming in the pits for a scheduled pit stop? Schremser makes his way into the pits to fix that nose cone. Around about the time for half distance as well, so that's a double whammy for Schremser. Well, in fact, it was D, wasn't it? It was Andy D that was looking out on the... D did not come into the pits. So Schremser's possibly done his scheduled pit stop as Galetti goes around. He's got to be very careful rejoining. I can hear a car behind. That is the car of Salvaggio. Salvaggio, I apologise. I keep calling him Salvaggio. Salvaggio. This is what you get when you have an English speaker with all these European names that are a bit unusual to me, but I'm trying the best I can. So Ely Clark with a clear track out in front. Bogle is still in second by 16 seconds. So we now have officially 3 retirements. Muller has called it a day. So what I did suspect is that they wouldn't have fixed that 3-wheeled car. Galetti is in the pits from 7th place. So that's possibly the first of our, or maybe the second of our scheduled pit stops. I think Tremsel was our first. So Ely Clark. Very smooth into turn 1. Possibly a bit of lift and coast. So Galetti is a lap down after that pit stop. But just behind Schuberkamp in the Tyrrell. So come out of pits with a drafting partner. That's always good. So Andy D still plugging away. I'll be interested to see lap time. So lap time of 1:52.4. Maybe he doesn't feel like it's detrimental to his race. That is Bogle that's gone around. So I was saying good things around, saying good things of Bogle. Another commentator's curse. That means that Neuenhoff is down to 3rd. Up to 2nd, rather. Martino, another fastest lap of the race, 1:41.2. The leader's pace is now 1:43.4, but Ely Clark doesn't really need to push. I am wondering whether there is a no-stop strategy on the cards here. Bolveg currently in the pits from 11th place. So 3rd has gone around again at Brems Curve 3. Unseen by us. That means Michael Stoy is getting closer. 20 laps to go. So Schuberkamp in 8th place in the Tyrrell Cosworth. So Ely Clark out front has led from lap 1. Got that Lotus Renault off the line quickly whilst there was carnage behind. I think maybe a few drivers are possibly a little insecure about getting their cars off the line or giving it too many revs. It's very easy to pop an engine, so you don't want to be revving that engine too much. Now Andy D is in the pits, so possibly to fix his wing. And I did see Bogle in the pits, possibly out again. Drop down to 4th place. So Andy D, I wonder whether he was thinking of doing the no-stopper strategy, but that front wing, possibly a front wing change, we'll have to see when he comes out the pits again. So Andy D turns to the pits. That's Ely Clark coming into the pits, so it is a pit stop along with Salvaggio. Salvaggio is already in the pits from 6th. So let's see whether Andy D, the director doesn't want to look at Andy D, but I'm going to force him to do so. I want to see if that front wing is fixed. It actually is. So a pit stop for Andy D. No change in tyre strategy, it looks like, from all of these pit stops. So Andy D remains on the hard tyres. Edie Clark is in and out of the pits, stays in the lead. Comes out of the pits in traffic. I think that is Schuerkamp in the Tyrrell just ahead. He is chasing that Renault of Salvalaggio. But Edie Clark is able to get around on the straight before this dreaded chicane. So 20 laps gone, past half distance. This has gone quicker than I thought it would. Bogle gets it all wrong at the first chicane. Keeps it pointing in the right direction though. I was worried it was going to be a spin. Can't quite get it slowed down. I wonder if the brakes are becoming a little bit of a problem. So, Edie Clark after the pit stop. I did say that the gap hadn't dropped, but 4.4 seconds to Nieuwenhof. I don't think Nieuwenhof has been into the pits yet. So I wonder whether Nieuwenhof is trying something a little bit different. Ulveg in 11th place in the Williams. Currently the last runner on the grid. Now we are past half distance, so there is a rule to do with points. I had to ask the stewards about this. If you make it past half distance, you are guaranteed points. If you DNF in the first part of the race and you are in the top 12, you do not get points. But we have 11 cars still running, so everyone will get points past this point. So Schremser now trying to gain on Schuerkamp, just misses the back of the slightly slower through that chicane. It did look like Schuerkamp was having a bit of trouble getting it slowed down for that chicane, and Schremser was caught by surprise. So on the brakes, couldn't quite. He did well to actually miss and not spin himself, but the closing speed was possibly a bit more than he would have liked. So a bit of a brown pants moment for Schremser, but he's able to get it back up to 8th place, with Schuerkamp just behind. So Edie Clark after that pit stop now is pushing on with a 140.6. So those laps that Martino put in have just been absolutely blitzed by Edie Clark. Edie Clark doesn't want to push too much. She's got a good advantage. She is pulling away from second. And championship leader Michael Stoy in third in the BMW, Brabham BMW that is. 17 seconds adrift. That chicane has possibly claimed its first victim. I think Muller may have been the victim of that chicane. Didn't see it on camera, but ripping the right side off your car coming into a right-hander would maybe suggest that maybe cutting it a little bit fine with the barrier on the right-hand side. Salvalaggio in 7th place. So after that no-stop strategy last time in Silverstone, Salvalaggio a bit down the order. His teammate, however, Nieuwenhof in 2nd place. Nieuwenhof did not score. last time out. So looking at my cheat sheet as well. So Nieuwenhof has competed in two rounds so far. The second and the third round. Missed Silverstone. So he's back with us today for Hockenheim. Schremser in the McLaren. Where is he on the list? Schremser, where are you? Schremser, a DNF in the first round. Didn't turn up in the second, but unfortunately an accident in the third. Came away with fifth place in the fourth round. But Ely Clark has done 3 rounds so far. Well, in fact, it's Schremser, 5 points rather. So Ely Clark has been here from rounds 2 onwards. Only 46 points in the championship, just behind Sal Valaggio. So possibly some changes of position. She was only 2 points behind, 48 points to 46. So Camp really being a ginger in that, gingerly in that chicane. So Galetti is now up to 6th place. 54 seconds behind 5th. Ely Clark is pushing on. So has 1 win this season so far. Bogle, however, has been with us since the second round at Buenos Aires. He's been on the podium once. That was in the third round at Monaco. So that looks like Bolberg in the Williams goes slightly wide in the Ost curve. But gets back on track, no problem. So Schremser in 8th. Is Schuurkamp around? I wondered why I didn't see a Tyrrell behind. That would be because Schuurkamp has gone around. He's dropped down the order in 9th place, now 30 seconds behind his closest competitor. So Ely Clark coming through the stadium section. It's got a couple of lapped cars to pass. She's going to lap up to 6th place. And she has passed Galetti. You can see just in front there. So as I say, she had a dominant round in Monaco in round 3. Got a 2nd place in Buenos Aires. Could have been a win, if not for an accident towards the end. And then a 5th place last time out at Silverstone. Bit of a torrid time by her own admission, I think. She said she made too many mistakes. Had a car that was a little pointy. So Andy D in 10th place. A pit stop for a front wing change and out again. So Andy D looking down at the results. Unfortunately, Andy D has been with us 2 rounds so far. 2nd and 3rd round, and both times he's blown an engine. So it would be good for Andy D to get a finish. So possibly pushing that engine a bit too hard. So Schuurkamp now up to 9th place. So 25 laps of 38 gone. Sal Valaggio in 7th. 8.4 seconds behind Galetti. That might be salvageable. Looking at lap times, it does look like Galetti is able to put in the 42s. Salvalaggio is able to put in the 42s as well, but dropped a couple of seconds. Maybe that was lap cars, possibly meeting lap cars in the wrong place. So after that stunning no-stop strategy in Silverstone, slightly down the order. And I am wondering whether he got caught up in that first chicane incident. But I'll have to check the briefing afterwards, or check what people are chatting out afterwards. So, looks like the temperature has dropped a couple of tenths, but it's not dropped an awful lot. Track temperature still around 41 degrees. It's still quite hot. Borvega's gone around at the first chicane. Let's see if we can switch to him. And he's got going again. Stays out the way of third place coming through. Seeley Clark is at the last chicane until the stadium section. So Bremsker 3. See Galetti just ahead. This is Borveg. Oh, that was, I think, a little bit close to the tyres there. He possibly got away with that. I thought that was going to be a hit to the Armco on the inside, which possibly would have been damage. But you can see he was trying to slow it down. And that will be our next retirement. So I wonder if... didn't look like any damage at all. So Borveg has decided to call it a day. He may have been a bit too far behind, but it's always good to stick around because you never know what might happen in these races. Down towards the end, we've had there's normally a little bit of a lull in the middle of these races, but sometimes it does kick off at the end. Whether that's to do with driver fatigue or just car fatigue, the stakes creep in. Places can be lost, places can change. But we are nearly under 10 laps to go. So Galetti making it through that dreaded chicane. Looks like Andy D doesn't have too many. Just looking at the times there, Andy D is unfortunately 27 seconds behind Schurekamp. But Salvalaggio 5.7 seconds. That gap does seem to be coming down. So will this be the battle of the race? Galetti gets out of the way of the leader. Possibly catching the leader by surprise. It's always best to stay online. Stoy in the background, running out of road, but he's still on the podium, 4.7 seconds. Going to keep an eye on third as well. Third, fourth, and perhaps fifth might change in the latter half of this race. In fact, the latter quarter or latter third. So, Ely Clark pass another lap car. So, lapped all the way up to 6th place on the road. That's a yellow flag in the stadium section, I think, but it's clear Schurekamp is still having trouble slowing down for that chicane. It scares me every single time. So Schremser, 8th place, 26 seconds behind his nearest rival, Salvalaggio, in front, who's closing on Galetti. I think Galetti has possibly made a couple of mistakes. 145.7 the last lap around, so the mistakes creeping in for Galetti. Gives maybe Salvalaggio a little bit of hope in the remainder of this race to get up to 6th place. A couple of extra points can make all the difference in this championship. Now, I did say there was a lot of these positions are very, very close. A lot of drivers are sharing positions. So a lot to be sorted out in the final 3 rounds. It does look like Schuerkamp's possibly just about to be lapped by the leader. So Sal Valagio, 3.6 seconds with 10 laps to go. So if he closes at this rate, it's now down to 2.5 seconds. So 6th and 7th are up for grabs. Martino is now past Stoy. Stoy was on the podium. Have I missed something? Stoy was on the podium a minute ago, but he's now dropped down to 5th. That means that Bogle is back on the podium. Still a bit adrift from Nieuwenhof in 2nd. I believe Nieuwenhof has not pitted. Plugging away in 10th place. That hard tyre strategy seems to be his way of driving these cars. Now Bogle making a few mistakes. Martino is closing in a little bit, 4.2 seconds. Bogle would love to stay on that last step of the podium, I would imagine. This is the battle I'm interested in. It was closing up to about 2.5 seconds. You can see that ATS ahead. The Renault of Sal Valagio just coming into the stadium section. So that's Galetti that's gone around. So Sal Valagio's pressure has paid off. Galetti was... I wonder whether he's suffering from some handling issues, because he was hemorrhaging lap time. Made it easier on the Renault of Sal Valagio. So, positions changed. The top 6. Sal Valagio does have about 68 seconds to 5th place. I don't think that's going to change unless something dramatic happens in the top 5, but we have had engine blow-ups and things. So this latter part of the race, I would be kind of acutely aware of my engine temps. So we see someone going slightly wide in turn 1. That is a scary chicane. Thankfully they did change that chicane later on, and I think it was actually made famous. If you look up, I believe it was Nelson Piquet, and off the top of my head, Salazar. That's where they had their, I was going to say coming together. They came together in terms of their cars, but they came together in person as well. In a bit of a punch-up. Some karate moves by Nelson Piquet, who was not best pleased of trying to lap Salazar, and Salazar not being the most helpful. So Martino back on the podium. Is that a further problem from Bogle? Possibly was. So Martino has maybe got to think himself a little bit lucky here. He had that accident that ripped off his front wing. Had to pit very, very early, earlier than he probably would have liked, and started to put in lots of fast laps. But he was already way down the order and has been able to come back to 3rd place. So we will possibly see some championship positions changing hands, because championship leader is now down in 5th place. So 5th place will still be 10 points. So that's a good haul of points, but I think Michael Stoy would perhaps have wanted more. Schuerkamp coming out of an Ostkurve. Andy D. This is a change for position. So Andy D does get it slowed down, but had to take a tighter line into that chicane, so Schuerkamp is going to be a bit faster on the exit. Andy D takes the middle of the track, defending to the inside, takes a very wide line into the stadium section. So a change for position as Andy D goes a little bit wide going into the stadium section, braking a bit light into the Sachs curve. I think that is second place of Nieuwenhof just behind this battle. Does look like Bogle in the stadium section is having more problems because he's around and he's down to 5th place. So more problems for the Lotus Renault driver. He was on the podium, but now down to 5th place. Made an absolute stunning start. He was the biggest gainer of all in the first 5 laps of this race in terms of positions, but unfortunately in the latter part of this race, perhaps mistakes are creeping in. As I say, it could be fatigue, could be car fatigue. Schuerkamp is now letting that Ferrari go away. Salvalaggio. I thought he was actually past or had lapped Andy D. No, that's Nieuwenhof ahead in the Renault. I thought he had passed Andy D, but I think it possibly a mistake. Let that Ferrari back pass. So the top 3, Ely, Clark, Nieuwenhof, Martino. This top 5 has changed around quite significantly in the last few laps. Coming down to the last few, so 5 laps to go. It's a lot different doing a lapped race rather than a timed race because you don't run down the clock. The laps are what they are. You need to complete the race distance. So Ely Clark just got to keep out of trouble. 27 seconds to second place. This is the other Renault of Salvalaggio. I think I'm getting those 2 Renault drivers mixed up. One of them has a blue helmet with blue flashes on the rear wing. That is a driver gone around. 10th place, Andy D. Unfortunately, that means that Schuerkamp is back through into 9th. So, fabulous battle between those 2. But it's who's making the least mistakes, unfortunately. So, 5th place of Bogle is having all kinds of problems. Is this terminal now? I'm not seeing any smoke. That does look like it is terminal. That is unfortunate. So after the 10th place last time out, Bogle is going to retire from this race. He will score points. So I'll have to have confirmation of some of these DNFs. I believe Bolveg is possibly the last of the scorers today in 11th place because he was past half distance when he retired. But I'll get confirmation. So that's a commentator's curse for me. I already marked down Bogle as being in 5th place. That was my bad. So Salvalaggio now up to 5th. Galetti moves up to 6th. And round goes Andy D. So after catching up to Schuerkamp, is making all kinds of mistakes in this last portion of the race. So Ely Clark, look at the rubber, look at the marbles on this track. We don't really want to be heading offline too much. But Neuenhofer's put in a stunning drive here. If you can come home in 2nd place. Now I don't like to usually do this because it's not a guarantee that it shows the right things, and I don't think it is. Even if I refresh the overlays, it's not very reliable, so it's not showing the pit stops correctly, because we know for a fact that Martino has come into the pits. So 35 laps gone of 38. Galetti, a few mistakes coming down to the last part of this race. That is a Renault just behind, but that isn't for position. So a lot of these positions, I thought it was going to come down to the end to change around, but everyone is spread out quite significantly. So no big grandstand finish. So Ely Clark just needs to keep it going. So that's not the Renault in 2nd place, that's Salvalaggio in 5th. So the leader, Ely Clark, has now lapped up to 5th place, so a dominant performance after that win in Monaco and dropping down in Silverstone. Has now come back with a vengeance. I don't know whether this is going to change the championship lead. I'm looking at the provisional points now, and it's certainly going to be very, very interesting, but I'm not going to give it away. Give anyone the commentator's curse like I have already. So Schuerkamp now up to 8th place now that Bogle has unfortunately retired, so Bogle will get confirmed 10th place. So through that chicane, only 2 more times. We've got to do that horrible chicane. Now, I don't know what everyone else prefers. Do they prefer the old layout of Hockenheim or this longer layout? I'll go slightly wide in turn 1, but doesn't look like any problems. That's 5th place of Salvalaggio. It's gone round in the Brems curve too. Hopefully this is not terminal. No, it isn't. It is just a spin. So mistakes creeping in right at the end. He is safe from 6th place Galetti by about 30 seconds, so no worries there. But just got to keep the wheels on their wagons. The last thing you want to do is rip off the corner of the car with only 1 to 2 laps to go. So Ely Clark now on her penultimate lap. It does look like damage for Salvalaggio. It does have Galetti 20 seconds behind, so can he hang on for 2 laps with that front wing just dangling off the car? So is there a sting in the tail between 5th and 6th in these final 2 laps of the race? I'm going to keep an eye on that gap between 5th and 6th. Andy D up to 9th place. Again, he's caught up to the back of Schuerkamp, so after all of these spins and these accidents between these two, We are now locked into the battle for the last 2 laps. So Ferrari power versus Cosworth power. So it's Tyrrell Cosworth versus Ferrari. So I think Andy D has had the legs on Schuerkamp. Slight mistake from Schuerkamp coming out of turn 1. Did hit the dirt. It meant the lack of momentum onto the straight. So he does well to get to the middle of the track to defend for the first chicane. It looked like Schuerkamp possibly wanted to take another bite of that draft, but going slightly wide on the exit, the first chicane, means he drops a bit further behind. Still in draft range, but I think Andy D will do well to hang on. You can see that Schuerkamp has now been completely scared off from that chicane, just wants to get home. Not taking any chances coming through that chicane at all. So Ely Clark now on her last lap of the race, 38 of 38. Coming down. The last time she will come to Bremskurve 2. Last time she has to do this dreaded chicane, gets through it cleanly into the Ost curve. Tremser in 7th place. Got one more lap to do. Ely Clark coming down to the last time for Bremskurve 3. Through it cleanly. Down to the stadium section for the last time. The director doesn't quite know what to look at. So 9th place, that is 9th place has gone around at Schuerkamp. The leader is just going to come upon a stricken Tyrrell in this last corner here. So Schuerkamp at the side of the road, perhaps wanting to be lapped again. So Ely Clark comes over the line and will win the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. A stunning start, led all of the way and managed to come across the line in first. Neuenhoff, a stunning, what I think was possibly a no-stop strategy in the end. Second place, Martino is going to come across the line in third. So Martino knocked off his front wing in turn 1. Early pit stop and had to fight his way back up. Capitalised from other people's mistakes. Come home in third. Stoy was up and down in the top 5, but it's going to come home in 4th. Salvalaggio, it's going to come home in 5th. So he was able to get back to the pits, or back to the finishing line, and complete his race before Galetti caught him. He didn't have a front wing in the end. So the lap of honour for Rebecca Ely Clark. This is her second win of the season. So she's going to be proud of that. Kept it under control. Got away at the start. Never really looked back. Pulled out a good enough gap in the early portion of this race. Pitted around half distance. So the medium tyre pit strategy was the best one to be on today. So having the proverbial cool down lap. So that is Neuenhoff wiggling from side to side. He's got to be pleased with that. Martino has got to think that he come out a little bit lucky. But drivers are going to be pleased with that, I think. Very, very pleased. So we've come to the end of the race. So let's see if we can get you the results. So the session results official are. So Ely Clark comes away with the win. Neuenhoff in second place. Vito Martino in third. So Story, championship leader, comes home in fourth. So good points for Story. Slightly slow away from the start, but was able to come away with fourth. Sal Villagio gets fifth. Could have been close with Galetti in sixth. Schremser in the end in the McLaren does come away with seventh place. That's his best finish of the season. So seventh place for Schremser. And then Andy D coming back in eighth place. So he survives a race. He's solved his engine blow-up problems. He was battling early on with Schuerkamp, so swapping positions what seemed like every 2 laps. So Schuerkamp's coming home with 9th. Bogle will get classified in 10th. And then I believe that possibly the last points finisher will be Borveg in 11th. I'll have to wait for official confirmation. So Joseph Muller ripped off the corner of his car. 12th place in the results. Rosa pulled off the track. Don't quite know what happened to Rosa. We didn't see any engine smoke. So it was possibly an engine failure. And same with Joe Reebok. We saw Joe Reebok pulling off as well. So I'm wondering what the problem with his race was. But that's where we stand for this race. So that's Hockenheim over and done with. That's 5th round, or the 5th round of this championship. We have 2 rounds to go. They are going to be an absolute corker, I think. So we are at Monza for the next round. It's the 11th of May. So I'm really looking forward to Monza. So, I mean, this was a really fast round, but Monza should be even more so. And then we head to our final round. There's a bit of a gap between the 11th of May and the 8th of June. And we have to wait until the final round. I think this championship is possibly going to go up to the absolute wire. Because as you'll see in a minute, championship points, and these are provisional championship points. Because I've had to do them on the fly. But the championship points as they stand, there could be a championship sider in Adelaide for these championships. Or for this championship. So, Ely Clark is, my calculation, is leading this championship. Possibly on countback, maybe Michael Stoy will be in the lead. So they currently top of the championship, 66 points each. It does look like Ely Clark has possibly got a more second places. So maybe I think Ely Clark actually does take it. Martino moves up the order now in 3rd place. It's 60 points. 2 points behind Sal Villagio. So 4th place. Only 2 points between him and Vito Martino. Then 5th place. 42. So a little bit of a gap now between 4th and 5th. Neuenhoff, even though he came 2nd this time. It's 42 points. That does seem a little bit cruel, but it looks like the top 4 are away. It could be a fight in the last 2 rounds between the top 4. Then you have Galetti, who's only scored twice, around 3 times this season with 34. Then Matthias Bogle, unfortunately having that retirement. I believe he does score this round, so he's provisionally on 28 points. Josef Muller, I think, was an unrepairable. He does possibly not get points from this round, but provisionally he is in 8th place in the championship. Schuerkamp 9th with 20, and Ronnie Ruger, who wasn't here today, on 16 points. So, what a round we had at Hockenheim today. I've been your host, Neil Wood. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining SimRacers Online for this round. Give the stream a like if you liked what you saw, and we'll see you next round for Monza in Italy, which will be an absolute corker. So thank you for watching, everyone, and we will see you next time.